Okay, Grandma, go ahead.
John's great-great-grandfather, Jacob, was called on the jury. It was in the days of Prohibition, where liquor was not allowed. But some people made liquor on their own. But he was called on the jury to convict a man of having liquor. So they passed the liquor around to each of the men, and they smelled it. But when it came down to great-grandfather Jacob's turn, he took a big drink of it. He said he couldn't tell by the smell. He had to drink it. They all laughed and said, okay. He said it was good, too. That was the end of that story.
So how did you and Daddy meet? How did you meet?
Well, she was the secretary for
Bookkeeper.
E.D. Babbitt Motor Company,
Ford Garage.
which is a Ford garage
In Flagstaff, right?
in Flagstaff. And I was stationed at the CC camp down at Wood Springs. And we used to go in there with our equipment. And Mary looked so much like the girl that I went to high school with. I was attracted, of course. And well, I guess nothing happened until we went to a dance at Elks Club in Flagstaff. And she was there. I don't know if you were there with Ed or not, but anyway, Ed was there. And
Her brother, right? Ed
and Jacob.
Jekyll, her brother.
And I didn't know him very well, but he was the state champion golfer at that time. And I, of course, used that as an entry and got him to introduce me to her.
That profited
That's
everyone.
great. So now tell us the story about the cowboy that Loretta loves so well.
Well, that was also down in Sedona. And there was Bill Price. He was a comical cowboy, I guess, or ex-cowboy anyway. And he always was spinning yarns. And one time I had a speaker, I think he was an Englishman. And he was down telling all the things that he'd done and at this meeting. And Bill stood it as long as he could, and finally he said, you know, we had a little experience here. He says, I was riding over in Dry Creek and I jumped a bear. And he says, I took my rope down and was going to catch him. He says, I threw it, and about the third try I got the bear. And the bear, instead of running, he came back up the rope to me. He said, by the time he got up close, I crawled off and the bear got in the saddle.
So how did Mom and Pop, your mother and father meet? Mother? They met in St. Louis, right?
I don't know.
You don't know. But what did Mom and her brothers used to do when they were young kids?
They would entertain for the church, put on an entertainment. And my mother's mother would make an appointment for them to go and on the stage and dance and sing and do a little skittish Irish jig. And they didn't know anything about it until she told them that they were supposed to be there. So they did it, and it was all free of charge. But everybody enjoyed it very, very much.
She played the banjo, right? Mom played the banjo.
She played my mother played the banjo, but not for that. She just played it on the side. And an artist saw her and wanted his students to paint a picture of her. But she said no, she wanted the expression changed in her face. but we have this painted picture of my mother done by the teacher, the artist teacher.
Playing the
Up there
banjo.
on the wall.
Get that picture if you don't.
That's a nice picture.
So, Daddy, how did your parents meet?
Well, they were young folks in around Osage, Iowa, and they went to high school together. And Mother's brother was taken seriously sick with spinal meningitis, and they couldn't find anything, so they finally moved to California. And of course, Dad stayed at Osage, but my great-grandfather was kind of a keeper of the family, I guess you'd call him. He had all the money and took care of all the relatives around Osage, but when it got time, when Dad was thinking about getting married after he got out of school, Grandpa talked him into going to California and getting Mother, because Mother was one of his favorites. And that's the way they did. Dad, of course, rode the train out there. They didn't have airplanes those days. He rode the train and went and got Mother at Palo Alto, or San Jose, I guess it was.
When did she go to Stanford, and what did she get? What kind of degree did she get from Stanford?
Well, she, when they lived there in San Jose, she could take the interurban up to Palo Alto, where Stanford was. And she'd been a teacher because she'd graduated from San Jose Teachers College, and she'd been a teacher and displayed some art characteristics that hit the art teacher at Stanford. And so he talked her into coming to Stanford and taking the fine arts curriculum. And she was there, of course, in the 1906 earthquake, and shook down Stanford Church and all sorts of things like that, but she didn't get hurt. But I think she'd been teaching, well, she taught 2 years after she got out of San Jose and then went back to Stanford. And by that time, Daddy had graduated from Ames, Iowa State College, so it was time for him to get married and take care of the farm. And he went to California and got Mother, and they got married and came back and started farming in Iowa.
And is that where you were born?
That's where I was born, or Dale was born, or Barbara was born. All of us were born in the farmhouse on that farm in Iowa.
And then when did you move to New York?
Well, Grandpa owned the farm where Daddy was, and he wanted to sell it. So the other grandpa, Grandma's father, had bought a farm in New York, and he was kind of a footloose character. He didn't want to stay very long in one place. So he talked Mother and Dad to going back to New York. And gee whiz, land, you could buy land in New York for $15 an acre and sell that in Iowa for $200. So that struck them pretty good. Dad owned the machinery and the cattle, so when he sold that off, he had enough to by Grandpa out in New York. And we went to New York in 1917, I believe it was. Yeah, Barbara was a year old when they went back there, and Mother was worried that Alice wouldn't know her, that they were gone a month, and when they came back, Alice didn't recognize her.
Barbara didn't.
Or Barbara, I mean, yeah, didn't recognize her. And that actually broke Mother's heart, of course.
You talking about Alice or Barbara?
Barbara.
So you went to Cornell, right? And then when you graduated in forestry from Cornell, what did you do when you were going to school there? What type of work did you do on the side?
Well, I was a farm boy at heart, and so my freshman year, I thought all I knew was how to take care of the cows. And I got a room at the ag boarding house, they called it, and a job milking the cows for the university. And well, usually I'd have to milk 35 cows or so in a sitting, and they didn't have machines, so we had to do it all by hand. And I just say the way I did it, because they had 4 or 5 cows on test that they were measuring the milk production from, and when the regular man had a day off, I had to milk the test cows. And that was a job 4 times a day. But anyway, that was the first year, and then the next year, my roommate and I got a job milking the cows at a ranch that I guess is, I think it was supposed to have been 2 miles from where we were living. We'd go over there and milk those cows at 10 o'clock at night and feed them, and then walk back home. So the nights were kind of short.
Wow.
Because I had an 8 o'clock class every day. But anyway, when I went to the infirmary for a physical, that was one of the questions they asked me, how much sleep I got. And when I told them, they didn't think that was going to work out. But I lived. And then, of course, well, I shouldn't tell you the story, but when I got out of high school, the old superintendent of schools somehow thought I should take the tuition exam for Cornell, and there were a lot of smart kids, and I thought, gee, I won't get that. But finally, Miss Skink talked me into it, and I went and took it. And then in the meantime, I decided that I wanted to be a forester, so Mother and I had gone to Syracuse, and I had matriculated in the forestry school up there. And then the word came from Cornell, you got this tuition scholarship. So I thought, well, I better do that. But it was a tuition scholarship, and if I took forestry there, why, I didn't need a tuition scholarship and would lose it. So I got into the College of Liberal Arts and Science, and I took courses up in the forestry school and also in a civil engineering school, because I wasn't sure whether I was going to be a forester or civil engineer. So I took all the surveying and everything that the civil engineers got. But after, 2.5 years, I think it was, I had taken all the courses that they could give me, and my advisor in the School of Liberal Arts said, well, you got to take Greek or something like that. And I said, no way. And So I changed colleges then. I went up to the forestry school. And that's why it took me 5 years to get a degree. Because so many of the courses that I needed for forestry I had not taken in the liberal arts course.
I want to plug this back because
So tell a story about you coming out to Arizona to work after you graduated from Cornell.
Well, that was after I got my master's degree. And one of the other graduate students who had been in our same room with me all that year had a car. And he had to come to Arizona too, so he came and said, well, I said, let's go together. So I got to ride with him in his car, and he was going to Holbrook, and I was assigned to Flagstaff. But when we got to Holbrook, you never had experience of the Holbrook water at that time.
Couldn't be any worse than burning oil.
Bill drank water and I drank beer that night. I got along all right. Bill was sick.
But didn't you have something else that was in the car with you coming out? He had a pet of some kind.
Bill was a reptilologist and he had a pet snake. He used to bring it out and he would drive a half a day and then I'd drive a half a day. And on my half a day, Bill would play with the snake. Bill would let that snake work over toward him. He says, Bill, if that thing gets in my lap, we're going in the ditch.
So tell the one story about the fire that you had to outrun, that chased you. That was out of Sedona, wasn't it?
Let's
The
see.
forest fire that you went to fight by yourself.
Oh, well, maybe you're thinking about the one that when I was still in logging camp, they called me late in the afternoon and said, you got a fire up on the road above the camp. And I went and got the car and stuff and drove up there and no fire. And so I climbed a tree to see if I could see it. And the fire was clear across the canyon from me. I had cautioned the lookout that he was looking across canyons and I wasn't sure that he knew where it was. Oh, I can see the base of the fire. So I thought, well, he saw it, but when I climbed the tree and saw it across the canyon, that kind of upset me, but I had to drive about 10 miles to get around that canyon and go down the point to where the fire was. And when I got down there, it was dark. And the fire was burning up in the top of a dead pine tree. And I looked it over and I thought it looked all right. But I took my axe out to cut the tree down and the first whack, that whole top came out right over my head. And it was burning, of course, and I would, as I remember, I figured it was about 20 feet long section of that tree. And I started to run to get out of there, and I fell over a big rock, and I just went flat. My arms were out, my leg was out, and I couldn't move. And I just laid there waiting for that thing to hit me. And that's one time when the good Lord was with me, because that whole burning top broke into 3 pieces, and one went off at each shoulder and one over the top of my head. But I got up and went to camp, and the next morning I kind of told that lookout a few things.
Yeah.
Was that the one you were talking about?
Yeah.
That's I ever thought I got having the end of my life, and that's the one I'd tell them. And they couldn't believe it, because they thought I'd tell them a wild story about a forest fire. Well, of course, we had those too, but I think it was a year after we got married. We were living in Barney Pasture, and word came that there was a forest fire coming out of Oak Creek towards us. And we were just eating dinner. The assistant supervisor had come down to see me, and so he and the man that was helping me and myself got into my car, because in those days the Forest Service was pretty poor and didn't have money to buy everybody cars. So I used my own, and they paid me mileage. But anyway, we went down to where they said the fire was, and sure enough, it was really coming out of Oak Creek. It was Oak Creek was steep-sided canyon, and several hundred feet deep. And when that fire came out, it was going twice as high as the trees, and those trees are 100 foot tall. And a solid sheet of fire. And to this day, I don't know how old Bill, he wasn't Bill, but anyway, he's the fire guard down at Furno, and he'd come to the fire and got there before we had. And here was, Dave, that was his name. Here was Dave's silhouette against that sheet of fire. And I thought, gee whiz, there goes Dave. But I did a little running to my cell phone and got up to the car, and it was up on the road above the fire. And I just could see that car being burned up too. But anyway, we got the car moved, and then I sent the other boy that was with me to the camp to get the camp crew to come down and help us, because there were 3 or 4 of us weren't going to do any good against that fire. And finally, the logging crew got there. They came down first, and they were all hard-working boys. So we got the fire controlled all right, but by that time I was tired. And I went to home, and Mary didn't know me because I was so black, and I just kind of fell in the door.
Yeah, he fell in the door and
Thank you.
fell asleep.
The fire coming out of Oak Creek when we were at Barney Pasture.
I don't know what you're saying.
Well, that's okay.
But anyway, I met the CC crew coming in when I went out, and the supervisor was with him, and I was telling him what we had done, and he looked at me and he says, "Dean, if you ever do that again, don't come near me. Don't let me find you that tired again." He could tell by the looks, and I was in.
Dead tired.
But I lived through that too.
Well, there's some good stories, right?